Hey everyone, welcome back, and now we are up to episode 7 of Dexter New Blood, cleverly titled Skin of Her Teeth, which is a really good title considering pretty much the major plot point of this episode in the very beginning, really what sets everything into motion. And this is, I said in my review for episode 6 that's kind of the transitionary episode into the final arc, the final act. We're now in the final act. We're pretty much at the beginning of the end right now. And this was a great episode. I would say this, episode 5 and the premiere were, for me, the top 3 episodes so far. And I'm going to agree with what I've heard quite a few people say, that this felt like a return to form for a classic Dexter. More specifically, the classic near the end of a season episode where Dexter and the main antagonist, in this case Kurt Caldwell, are both aware of each other. And they're really starting to build their rivalry. Pretty much they know that one's going to be going after the other, kind of playing the mental chess game of cat and mouse. It's very quaint at this time. They're kind of just really going at it with each other, kind of subtly, but they know about the threat of the other one. So that was very good. That it did feel like a very classic Dexter episode. He's really got to keep on his wits. It does seem like he let his guard down a lot, but I think that's supposed to play with, he's been out of commission for 10 years. But and even more specifically, it feels like a later in season episode of the earlier seasons, the first 4, which those were run by Clyde Phillips. Clyde Phillips is running this series. So even though it was slow burning at first, it does feel like it's leading towards one of the better Clyde Phillips seasons. I'm not sure which between this or episode 5 I would say was my favorite next to the premiere. 5 had some good surprises, but it suffered from the same issues that I had with most of the season. With this, those really felt fixed. 2 of the biggest issues I've had so far was 1, the usage of Deb, and 2, the usage of Harrison, which I'll get to those. But in this episode, because at the end of episode 6, Angela calls Jim and says she needs Dexter Morgan because she found the body of her best friend Iris, who's been missing for 25 years. So she calls him and enlists his forensic expertise to find what happened. He finds the gunshot entry wound in her back, exit wound in the front. Of course, we all know it's Kurt, so the evidence he finds lines up with what we've seen from Kurt already. But he does find some skin in her teeth, as if she bit her attacker, hence why the episode's called Skin of Her Teeth. Of course, all this DNA leads towards Kurt, along with the suspicion of calling off the search the day before they were going to go in the caves, lying about seeing Matt. So now Angela is able to build her case against Kurt. And then sort of the subplots was Harrison is kind of dealing with the backlash of his arm breaking of the wrestling captain of the opposing team in the last episode. Also working at Kurt's truck stop. We also we're still following Molly, the podcast girl, who is being kicked off working with Angela because, she interviewed Kurt when she wasn't supposed to. And she's starting to put pieces of Dexter together that don't quite seem right. How he showed up at Kurt's cabin right when she was about to be in danger. The fact that she realized, where he put his phone next to us to charge, he must have recorded it. So she's kind of starting to draw suspicion, and the promo for next week's looks like she's getting Angela on board with that. So story-wise, it had a nice build-up, and then of course once Kurt is apprehended, we do get a little bit of backstory about him, which I was nervous about, and I don't really mind how they went about it, or what it was, which I'll save for spoilers for those that haven't seen it yet and don't want to know. But also, the only other issue I had was how Kurt knew or knows that Dexter's responsible for Matt. I mean, I get it. Maybe they'll explain more of how he was able to directly link Dexter to it. But yeah, other than that, it's really just Angela building her case against Kurt, him being able to pull himself out of it, and Dexter kind of juggling the ideas of leaving him for the police and coming to realize, I got to take care of this myself. Now, so story-wise, it was a very, very good episode that really did feel like a classic Dexter episode, especially when you get the cat and mouse stuff. This was the most Dexter Morgan he's been allowed to be since the beginning, essentially when he killed Matt. But the two things I feel like they fixed was, one, the usage of Deb. I get where they're coming from with using her as the replacement for Harry. He's racked with guilt, feeling responsible for her death, and that part of his conscience is kind of keeping him clean from killing. But they reduced her to one scene. And not only that, it was a scene that really encompassed what we were going to see Dexter go through the episode story-wise. So it was short, sweet, really helped set everything up, because her scene was towards the beginning. She wants him to go after Kurt and kill him. He wants to leave Kurt for the police. Angela's already building a case. It's a matter of time. One thing that was kind of cheesy, but I get where they're coming from with it, and it worked better since they only used her for that one scene, was she says, oh yeah, leave him for the police. What's the worst that could happen? And then we just see, blood spreading through her shirt, hinting at what happened to her. And then the usage of Harrison. I get he's supposed to be frustrated, angry, angsty, somewhat rebellious, but he's pretty much one note when it comes to Dexter. And since his first real episode was episode 2, since then, all his and Dexter's interactions has been Dexter saying or doing something, Harrison overreacting or misconceiving what he's trying to get at, have a bit of an argument, Harrison storms off, all pissed off. Here, they still kind of do that, but it feels like it's coming from a place of desperation rather than just angsty teenager. Dealing with the backlash of breaking the other kid's arm. Audrey, Angela's daughter, doesn't really want to hang out with him as much. We get him kind of realizing that. Because he's like, well, we can hang out. Actually, you know what? Never mind. It just walks off. And then a couple other wrestlers come up to him while he's at the truck stop. They threaten him. He takes out his straight razor and just slashes. I don't think he breaks the guy's skin, but he cuts through his Letterman's jacket. And then they run off, but that's when Dexter catches him and stops him. And one, it was good acting. I always thought the kid that plays Harrison did a good job performance-wise. But, yeah, it did feel like they were just making him too angsty and, not really, just dragging it out and not having the scene where him and Dexter come to an understanding. So he kind of breaks down and says, look, I know I'm fucked up. I know I messed up. I'm suffering from fantasies and urges and nightmares. Ever since I heard the Trinity podcast, which was before he attacked his friend, became a hero. He says that they've all come back. I know I'm fucked up. But then he ends it with, and that's why you left. I know that's why you left. And Dexter just kind of stands there, which always happens, whether it's with Rita or sometimes even Deb and Harrison. He just kind of stands there. He doesn't really, I get he's not good with words unless he's trying to get out of something. But then one of his buddies pulls up and Harrison runs off with him. But, so it's a typical scene that we've had a dozen times before, but it felt like it was coming from a place of desperation, and like it might actually lead to something next time they get together. So I like how they fixed Deb and Harrison in this episode. Also, there was a very good surprise in this one that I've been waiting for since, I think, episode 4. I'll save that for spoilers as well. Also, I really love Clancy Brown's performance as Kurt in this. I've said already that I think he is the most layered, complex, interesting, and truly scariest serial killer main villain we've had on Dexter since Trinity. Trinity will always be my favorite in that regard, but Kurt's very close. And he hasn't quite met his match yet. He's always very cool and calculated, and he always has this look on his face, like, and in his eyes, like, he already knows how to get out of what they're going to do to him before they even do it. Like Dexter brings Angela to his cabin, but when he brings her down to that room, it's all been stripped clean. Like, it looks like it's like an unfinished basement. Kurt was already ahead of him there. And then there's been a few talks with him and Dexter where he's like, I thought we could have been friends. Especially, you let us use your property for the search. You gave me a ride that night when you saw me outside the bar, drunk. But now here we are. Then the second time he has that conversation, he tells us, well, maybe I'll save that for spoilers, but he pretty much tells him, I know you killed my son. And he knows, but how he got there, I don't know. I guess it's possible, but that's really the only issue I had with this episode, was a little convenience that, okay, with what little he does have, he suspects Dexter killed his son. And that's just a nitpick. That's nothing super serious. I really liked this episode. I really did. Again, story-wise, not just felt like a classic episode, but felt like, that it reminded me of season 2 when Dokes, catches Dexter down in the Everglades, and then that sets up the rest of the season. Or like the Thanksgiving episode of season 4, where that sets up the rest. And I think they did a very good job with it. They did go overboard with, having Dex or Kurt threatening to kill each other. They're both playing it very cool. Trying to intimidate the other. And Kurt's doing a very good job at making sure the ball stays in his court. And one thing that is making this exciting is that I didn't get to watch Dexter on Showtime as it was airing. I binged it on Netflix after it ended. So if something crazy and intense was happening in like season 3 or 2, I knew Dexter was going to get out of it and be fine, because there's like 4 or 5 seasons left. Here, though, they said this is the finale. This is the ending of Dexter. So I actually don't know how this is going to end. It could go either way. Maybe Kurt is Dexter's match. I'm very excited. We've only got 3 episodes left, which is very surprising and sad because, we waited forever for the show to come, and now we've already seen 7 episodes and it got 3 left. But yeah, every time because I felt this with episode 4 and I felt this with episode 6, that kind of a almost filler, not quite filler, like still interesting enough to be a good episode, but felt more transitionary between arcs. The next episode after those, meaning 5 and 7, have been the best episodes of the series so far. And there is actually one more small complaint. It's not really the show's fault, but I'll save that for spoilers, which I'll get into. So yeah, episode 7, great episode. If you loved like the final act, especially of the earlier seasons where him and the killer are just really waging this war against each other that will eventually lead to the death of one of them. This is the first episode of that. This is the one that's really setting up the end game of the whole season series. I couldn't be more excited. Again, Kurt's backstory, I didn't think it was predictable, but one thing I was correct about was, I've heard some nitpicks, again with convenience, how Angela and, what's his name, Teddy, how easily they were able to find Iris's body. And I said, well, it must be his first victim, and so maybe she holds this sacred, there's something sacred about her for him. That's why she has this special place in this cave that could be easily accessible to him. And I was correct. When we get his backstory, Iris was his first victim and helped set up his whole ritual, his whole MO. I'll save that for spoilers as well. But great episode. I cannot wait to see how this plays out. It really had a feeling like it's only going to go up from here. Also, in the promo, it made it seem like Angela and Molly are going to be looking at Dexter, kind of asking around some of the weird stuff he's done. And it might come down to Kurt and Dexter. Maybe one will go on and one will fall. Maybe they'll both fall. We don't know. But I'm very excited to see. So, getting into spoilers now. So, with Kurt's backstory, he's in custody, and Angela wants a confession, but he gives her this whole story about his mother left when he was very young. And I like how cool and collective he is through this whole thing. And I also like the juxtaposition of this story he's telling and the flashbacks we see. Because, then he says he went on the road with his father, who is a truck driver. And oftentimes, he picked up sex workers. What was the name he said he gave them? Oh, something rats. I think it was, I can't remember now, but his father would pick up sex workers, and while they were in the back part of the cab, Kurt would be in the front seat, and you could hear him, brutalizing these women. I don't know if it came out that he killed these women, but he certainly abused them. And the only way to drown it out was for Kurt to play his record player as a young boy. And I think the song he plays was Del Shannon's Runaway, which is why he plays it when, the one girl ran away, and why he plays it at the diner after his kill. And then he says as he got older, he got his own truck route. The story he tells is that he saw Iris get into his father's truck, and then they went away, never saw her again, and kind of kept it covered up, never said anything, because he figured, yeah, she did run away. Maybe he did hurt or assault her in some way, but he thought, she made her way out. Or if he did kill her, he's still covered up for him. That's the story he tells. Now, what we see is a young Kurt who picks up Iris, but he tries to help her. Tries to help her from running away, tries to bring her home. She tries to jump out of the truck. He tries to stop her. She bites him, gets out, and I'm guessing in a fit of rage, as she's running away, he picks up his rifle and shoots her. So that sets up his whole MO. That's why not only does he make the girls run to shoot them, but he makes it sound like he's trying to help them. Like he tells them to run, go free, makes it sound like he's trying to help, but then shoots them anyway. I'm sure there's going to be some people that will say that's totally predictable and they thought it was lame. Well, Kurt is such an interesting, layered character that I think any kind of backstory is going to come off as not as good as we expected. I thought it was fine. You know, I thought it was plenty fair. I don't really have any complaints about it. They could have even left it ambiguous as to why he does what he does, and I would have been okay with that. I know no one likes ambiguity. They need answers to everything. But also, while Harrison is washing trucks, which one, there is this cool scene where he puts his face shield down and his apron on, and looks like he's dressing up like Dexter to kill somebody, but it's to pressure wash trucks. This one guy comes up to him with a little envelope, says, "Give this to your dad from Kurt." And it was the guy from the hotel in New York that Angela and Molly saw. But when Harrison gives it to Dexter, he opens it, and it was a bone screw, like a surgical screw. And this is when, that's pretty much his being made aware of Kurt knowing he's responsible for Matt. Now, because the second time Kurt brings up, we could have been friends. That night you picked me up and gave me a ride, and it was snowing. But at my house, it wasn't snowing, just in town. I realized it wasn't snow, it was ash. So he must have gone back to the incinerator, looked at the filter, and found the pin. Which it shows that Matt had screws and pins in his knees, I think it was. And that's pretty much all he has to go on. Now, maybe he figured no one else was out on the road that night. It was just you. You were coming from that direction. Had to have been you. But it doesn't go too deeply into it. It just shows, I know you killed my son. Here's my proof, which is the screw. And that's pretty much it. So, as of right now, yeah, it feels kind of like convenience. Maybe they'll build upon that. At least I hope so. But I loved the cat and mouse so much. Like, Dexter, I can't remember. I think he makes a call, or no, he pulls the fire alarm, I think, and cuts the power in the jail, so all the lights are out. And then he goes up to Kurt's cell. They're just kind of looking at each other. And Dexter's like, "I know what you are." And he's like, "I know what you are." And Kurt is just so good at playing calm and collective and just intimidating. That's pretty much as far as their rivalry is right now. But it's a good foundation. Now, the pleasant surprise of this episode was, which 5 had a surprise too. I'll say 5 did it better because I didn't know it was coming. But the week of episode 4, it was announced online that John Lithgow was coming back as a cameo appearance as Trinity. So I kept waiting every episode. It's like every episode, okay, there's Trinity on the podcast or whatever. And it didn't come. In this episode, it did. Now, it was kind of a small, nothing super special cameo. Apparently, he's scheduled, He's credited with like 2 or 3 episodes total. I read that when they shot New Blood, they only had Lithgow for 1 day. So it seems like this is his only cameo, unless that cameo appears in further episodes. If there is anything more, it's just going to be any extensions of that one scene, which it shows close up of his legs and hands with the razor coming out of Rita's bathtub, and we see him out of focus and then come into focus, Harrison's POV, and we just see him say, there, Daddy will be home soon. He just kind of gives a smile. That's it. So that's the image that's like burned into Harrison's mind. It's very quick, it's very short. Don't get me wrong, it was wonderful to see him again. But I think having known he was coming at some point, it kind of diluted it and built up the hype. I thought, maybe there's going to be some flashback to a scene with him and Dexter that we didn't see in season 4. Maybe he's going to replace Deb as the new Harry for like an episode, the way Brian did in the Nebraska episode. Or even once, like to say, hey, you failed to kill me before it was too late, and now your son's looking up to this guy. You might want to do something. If this is all John Lithgow is in, it's still great to see him, even at that defining moment in both Harrison and Dexter's life. But I feel like if I hadn't known about it, it would have made me just as excited as when Angel appeared in episode 5, because I didn't know that was going to happen. But other than that, solid episode. Again, really the only nitpicks would be, I guess, the convenience of what little Kurt has to go on of Dexter being guilty. But again, they could build off of that. Now, in the promo, I mean, it shows Molly talking to Angela more about Dexter, and it being kind of strange. Angela going to the drug dealer that he beat up when he killed the other drug dealer, that guy's guy. And he was like, yeah, he stuck me with something, and then he ran off. So it feels like they're going to start building a case against him, which is very exciting. But yeah, this is looking to be one of the great seasons. And I know if Clyde Phillips is behind it, even if the first half was very slow, if they're anything like this episode, but obviously bigger as they go on, this will be one of the great seasons. This will be up there with the first 4, maybe even better than 3. But I'm very excited for it. I loved this episode. Felt the most like a Dexter episode since the premiere, maybe even more so. But yeah, definitely in my top 3, possibly even my second favorite. But very excited for next week. I don't really have any predictions. Other than that, I'm pretty sure it's just going to be Kurt and Dex sort of building their war against each other. Don't really have any wishes, or like things I want to see. I guess, keep Deb, as limited as possible. Give Harrison and Dexter a conversation, for fuck's sake. Give them a serious conversation to have. And, yeah, keep that intensity between Kurt and Dex. And I'm predicting there is going to be a moment similar to when he tried to make that prosthetic for the one dead girl's face and it didn't look right, and he just snapped. I think there will be some sort of public moment, or Dexter will get some sort of reaction like that out of him, and he'll break his stoic exterior. But yeah, this is fixing to be a good end of the season arc, and I can't wait for it. But stay tuned for next week when we do episode 8, and thank you for watching.